Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Keys to Successful Grants and Appeals. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started. Number one, our webinar is being recorded, and we will be distributing via email the recorded session once we have some time to edit it and get it cleaned up. So if you've registered, you will get a copy of the recording of this webinar. And number two, today we will be using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to answer and respond to any questions you have. So as they come up, please put them in the Q&A function. And we will leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of today's session to answer all of your questions. With that, I would like to thank you for joining us today. My name is Peter Benson. I am the SVP of Treasury Services at Park Bank. And I am very pleased to welcome everybody and to especially thank and introduce you to our speaker today, Jeff Burkhart of Mission Forward. Jeff is the founder and president of Mission Forward, a business which was created to help nonprofit organizations thrive through strategic partnership, fundraising planning, and coaching. For more than 14 years, Jeff was the executive director of Literacy Network of Dane County, a local not-for-profit organization serving approximately 1,000 adults annually. Jeff holds an MS in Continuing and Vocational Education from UW-Madison, a BA in Journalism from Indiana University, and is a certified fundraising executive. I can't wait to hear what Jeff has in store for us today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to him and get the presentation started. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thanks, Pete, and thanks to Aaron also and all of the folks at Park Bank for hosting this webinar today. I'm really excited to talk to you today about how to really create a good appeal for grants and other similar applications for corporate and even for individual fundraising efforts that you're going through. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about getting ready and setting your priorities so that you're very well established as an organization to secure grants in the future. An idea that I have here for you is for you to talk about why you are the right organization to pursue this initiative. We're going to talk about how to put all the right pieces together. We'll talk a bit about budgeting, and then also about engaging beyond the page is what I'm calling it. And that's really about relationship building, because everything that you do regarding fundraising is built on relationships. And so it's not just about putting together something in writing, but it's also about building the relationships with the funder. Let's go ahead and get started here. So as we get ready, let's think about your strategic priorities. So hopefully you have a current strategic plan in which you've identified the key things that your organization is going to be doing over the next few years. And you have clearly stated what your organization is going to do and how it's going to make a difference, because that's going to really impact the way in which you can build a case for support. It's going to demonstrate to a funder that you've given it a lot of thought, that you have a clear plan, that you have identified where your organization is situated in your community. You've identified the other potential partners that you're working with in the community. And so you've really given it a lot of consideration, and that's going to show in your presentation to your funder. So think about what your top priorities are for the next year in terms of programs. So as you obviously will have other things other than just programming built into your strategic plan, things like communications in general about your organization. But think about your program priorities, and then also think about, what are some of the things that you need to make sure that you are successful in achieving your goals. And so as you give some thought to that, think about what you need in order for them to be successful. It's quite possible that you're going to be kind of frozen in time right now as you think about these things. You might have a little bit of fear, and that's of course very normal as you go into putting together a proposal. But if you have the security of the planning that you've put into this, you're going to feel a lot better about the process. And you've identified some of the potential pitfalls for your organization. What sorts of things might happen that could side rail or sidetrack you or derail you? And you've given some thought to how you could address those types of things. I'm, by the way, have included just a bunch of random photos from various trips that I've gone on. They don't really have a whole lot of relevance to this, except that they just bring me a lot of joy. So I hope you enjoy them too. So as I look at these photos, I'm thinking about different places I've gone. So when you think about your priorities, write down your three priorities, or make sure you have them documented somewhere. And that's going to kind of create your grant calendar or your grant planning. And this is actually a perfect time to be doing it. We're heading into the fourth quarter of the year. We're going to be planning for 2024 now. So this is a great time for you to be making a grant calendar, listing all the funders that might fit your priorities, and which of your priorities they might be interested in funding. So if you have three different program priorities, maybe identifying which one you want to put at the top of your priority list. And then we're going to go through and think about which funders might be interested in funding each of those types of priorities. Obviously, the one that your top priority should be the one where you would really focus on the funders who might fit into that top priority. So setting priorities is absolutely the first place to start. And then make sure that you have identified for your organization the however many funders. I'm going to say somewhere in the range of 30 or 40 funders that you might be looking at for the coming year. And chart out when their grant deadlines are. And then next to that, chart out which of your programs you think they might be interested in. Which of those strategic priorities are you going to pitch to each of those different funders? So we're getting ready, prioritizing. And then the next step is to think about why you're the right organization to do this work. How are you as an organization different from other organizations in terms of your mission, your audience, your various programs, and what about your work makes you the right organization to take on a particular issue? What makes you as an organization stand out? And give this a lot of thought. Also give some thought to the other organizations that might be similar to you, and be able to talk about ways in which you are different from them, or ways in which you might collaborate with them, or you may have had joint programs in the past or currently, because that is often on funders' mind, especially in our area in Madison, where there are a lot of nonprofits. I think funders are always looking to find out how you have worked with other organizations. And so I can say from my experience with Literacy Network, we often had a lot of different community centers and libraries and schools that we would work with. And we had several other nonprofit organizations that we referred people to. And so we thought a lot about ways that we were connected to the various other organizations. We are living in a vibrant nonprofit ecosystem. And so if you can think about how you have a very solid place in that ecosystem, you're going to give yourself a significant advantage because funders are always thinking about that. They're always thinking about what's going to have the greatest impact and how they can avoid duplicating services, how they can avoid spending money in one place that could have been spent somewhere else and been more effective. So that if you can already kind of predict that question and have a really solid answer for it, you can also then build that into your proposal for a grant. And feel free to go ahead and put questions in the Q&A box too, and we'll be sure to answer those questions. So you can plug those in. I think that we'll have some time towards the end to answer any questions, but you can put the questions in at any time. So this is one photo that actually is relevant to the slide, because if you look at this photo of all these trees, you know, they really have a communication with one another. They thrive off of one another. They support one another. And that's what we do as nonprofits, ideally. We are building a network. So nonprofits are not only looking to one funder to support one initiative. We have to be scrappy and we have to be really thoughtful about how we put together our programs, because it's a very, very rare occasion when a single funder is going to fund an entire initiative. You always have to have a network. And so your written proposal really is establishing a strong relationship with the funder. And if you are successful, you will have that relationship for many years to come. And you continue to build those relationships by demonstrating that you do what you say you're going to do, first off, that you are addressing the key needs in the community, and that you are integrating the ideas and thoughts of the funders into your work. So it's pretty likely that every initiative you have is going to have many different funders that are engaged, and they're interested in learning from you what the impact is of your organization's work. They want to know the stories of the people you serve, how you support the community, and help everything to improve. So you have a very solid role in this function of building a funding network so that your donors feel good about what they do. They feel like that the resources that they've put towards this were put to good use, and they're going to want to come back to you to ask questions. There are many funders that I had relationships with over many years who would call me and ask me about what was happening with programs, even outside of like the grant reporting periods. They would it would be an informal conversation. They might ask for ideas of different types of programs or initiatives. And that was only because we had spent years building that kind of level of trust. Usually it takes at least 2 or 3 years to build that level of trust. And once you have that, your proposal writing is going to get much easier. But I think when you begin in a process of writing a proposal, you do need to give a lot of thought to how you're going to build a relationship. As I said at the beginning, this is all about relationship building. So your proposal is one piece of that, and it's a very important part. But you have to consider also all the other elements, how you communicate not only in writing on this grant, but also in your other various communication techniques, in your ways of reaching out to that particular funder. the ways that you demonstrate your effectiveness to the community by telling stories and by putting together annual reports, newsletters. All of those things are really important to the way in which you can build a network with people. So what do funders want? Well, these are actual quotes. And the thing that's interesting to me about these quotes is they could apply to people who are in our community, and they could apply to people today. But all of the quotes that I'm sharing with you are from a book that I pulled in doing research for this presentation from 1993. And that was, I mean, it was kind of illuminating for me because I thought that a lot of the ideas were still very relevant. And so these are ideas and thoughts that last for a long time. In fact, in 1993, in this book, I don't think anybody was really using email that frequently. But they talked about some of the standardized proposal techniques that I think we still hold valuable today, that funders still look for. So I'm sharing with you some thoughts from funders that that existed then, and they were thinking about how the world was changing back then. We're still thinking about those things today. And so I think these are ideas that have a lot of lasting power that will probably still be true for many years to come. I'm guessing that funders are going to still want these things. We're looking for a partner so that together we can make an impact. We want to make an effective relationship which will accomplish our mutual goals. So keep that in mind too, that your funder, of course, has strategic priorities when they think about funding. So just like you have a strategic plan, they do too. And you need to think about how you could help them pursue their strategic goals. So if you don't fit into a strategic priority for that funder, the best way to continue to work on these things is to identify something that's strategic about what you do that fits. And if it doesn't fit with that funder, don't try and make it fit. Be honest about where you are. It's likely that there are plenty of funders who do fit for you. And I think in my work over the years, and I just knew that there were some organizations and some people who were not going to be interested in the work that I was doing because of the topic, not because it was not of good quality. And so save your energy. Do the things that work best for your organization and that fit the strategic priorities of those funders. And this last quote kind of falls in line with the relationship building. It's people who succeed, not proposals. We invest in human capital. So the relationship with the funder is built upon the ability of you and your organization to connect and to make sure that you demonstrate that you are trustworthy, that you are doing good work, that you understand the issue that you're working on, and also that you are fallible. So you also recognize that there are times when your organization doesn't always measure up at all times. So, and just be a human. The most important thing about that is you are working to improve and demonstrating that you're always looking for constant improvement is what the funder is going to be looking for. They don't expect you to be perfect. They don't expect you to have all the expertise you need, but I think that they do expect that you're going to be fully dedicated to delivering on your promises and making sure that you have good reports on what you do. So the next thing after you've identified, the potential projects that you could work on, potential funders, so chart it all out. And if you want to email me, I'd be happy to share with you a template that I've used for grants, and just it's a pretty simple table that you could put together. And I just list out all of your different funders, list out your priorities, list, of course, have the deadlines on it. But after you've done all of that, what what are the results that you envision in your program? So you've now identified your program, you've identified the funder that you're going to send a proposal to. But I want to know, if I'm your funder or your potential funder, I want to know, um, what results do you envision? What do you see happening as a result of what you do? I want to know what that person is able to do. I want to know from the perspective of one human being. And you could make this a personal story from somebody that you identify in your programs, if they're okay with that, if they give you permission to use their identity. Or you could use a story from somebody and just say this person prefers to remain anonymous. You could take a photo of over their shoulder of them working on something, so they don't have to be identified. But the ideal would certainly be to have a person who could embody the program, essentially. You could demonstrate the results of your program. It's always more impactful to create that emotional bond. So ideally, you have a picture of a human being who represents your program. It's not always essential to do that, but at least have that built into the way that you build your proposal. Tell the story in the narrative. And I would want to know that right off the bat. What is the impact that you've had on this person? And then how have you kind of replicated those results with multiple other people? How many other people have been impacted? Over how many years? How long has this program existed? How long has the organization been doing this work as well? I would want to know both from the program standpoint and from the institution standpoint, how long you've been doing this work. And if you haven't been doing it for a long time, that's okay. You could also, I think, newer organizations have the advantage of demonstrating that they are on top of or in front of what other organizations might be. They've come out of they've been created out of a need, and so as our world constantly changes, you could demonstrate why and how your organization has been created to address a particular need, and then also think about what results you've already demonstrated and what more you could be doing. So you could kind of think of it as if you were to design a program, and if it were let's say, impacting 8 people, but that you could demonstrate a lot more with more funding, or you could have greater results. How would you envision taking that program that impacts 8 people and expanding it to 24 people, to 32 or whatever? How many more times are you going to take that section and replicate your results? That's what funders like to see. What results do you envision? How are you able to take the thing that you're good at and build more of it in different places that are in need? And you can do that by demonstrating the results you've already had, and then talking about your plan for expanding that impact. A funder is going to want to know why your organization exists. They're going to want to know what the founding story is. They don't want to know a lot of detail about that, though. But I think it is important for you to say, we've existed for 30 years, and here's why we were founded. And just to very simply say that. Hopefully that's also in your other public relations on your website. So you could very easily pull that together. But if it's not right now, it should be. So be thinking about your founding story and how you can share that with funders, and how you can demonstrate that this is an authentic and impactful organization, that you've also given a lot of thought to the issues you address, and that they complement one another. So if you're an organization that works on poverty and homelessness, we can demonstrate how those are connected very intricately. If we could reduce poverty, we could reduce homelessness. So that's just one example. You may be thinking about ways that you could demonstrate the impact through various types of stories, and your founding story is definitely one of those. So I want to know your history if I'm your funder or your potential funder. I also want to know what your vision for the future is. So this could be related to your program. It could also be related to just the general direction of your organization. So how do you envision you will be impacting people's lives, and you will be working with other organizations over the next 3 years? So give me that story, and then also think about the drama of that story. Think about the impact of the things that you've already done, and the hopes that you have, the excitement you have. I want to see how passionate and excited you are about this issue. So when you write your proposal, I would want to see that related very clearly, by just telling me the issue that we see in our community and what you are doing to address it. So how do you tie into something that is noteworthy or newsworthy in our community right now? And I think a lot of funders are really drawn to, when we see the negative story, what can we do to make sure that we're addressing that issue? And so then we get into the heart of the proposal. When we really think about the program design, we want to know who you serve, how many people. So your numbers, your demographics. And again, think about ways that you can demonstrate that you've given a lot of thought to things that have not worked and how you can improve them. So if there's, if you had a decrease in numbers, I think almost everybody had a decrease in numbers in 2020. And then a lot of organizations saw a significant uptick in the years that followed. And what did you do to make sure that you were there for the people you served during the pandemic? And what did you do to help people address the challenges and the issues of the pandemic? What did you do to help people continue to access your services? This is a very important story for you to tell. So if you've come through that period, and you have a really good story to talk about, put that into what you're doing. When you think about your activities and your programs for your project that you'd like to have funded, I would, if I'm your funder, I would want to know, what are your innovative practices? what are the various elements of how you get it done? And then, who else do you work with? Who are the program leaders? How much experience do they have? Where did they get their expertise? Think about things like that. They may or may not necessarily need to be in the proposal, but definitely have them in mind, because it's likely that you'll have an opportunity to talk about the program with the potential funder. So how much do those services cost as well? That's another thing for you to think about. And I got ahead of myself a little bit there. How will the proposed project make an impact? So I want to see a really clear, brief description of the project and what is the impact of it. Why is that program effective? Talk about that. Also, when you think about costs, think about how you could kind of break that down a little bit. So if you think about the cost per student, maybe, or person served, or the cost per program, and one thing that I found to be really effective is, doing classes. We can assess the total cost by looking at the cost of the instructor, the cost of the materials, the space, and any other side costs. There weren't really that many. It was mostly just staffing and materials. But I could calculate that pretty easily. I could say, okay, it's going to cost me $5,000 for a semester here. I could take that and put it somewhere else, and it would cost pretty much the same, because those are pretty fixed costs, and we have a set number of hours. So when you relate that, talk about the expertise that you bring, talk about the cost per program, break down those costs very clearly, so that your potential funder can see that and can see that it's going to make a difference. It is very important to have very clear outcomes in your proposal. So these are examples of just a couple of outcomes. So make sure that they are SMART goals, so that they are specific, measurable, they're reasonable, they're time bound. And so these are just two examples. In 12 months, 75% of teen program participants will demonstrate an increased knowledge about climate change. Just made that one up. And by June 2024, we will decrease the number of people between the ages of 30 and 50 with high blood pressure in Coronary County by 5% from the 2020 rate of 40%. It's a little bit convoluted, but it does give you some specific information there. So make sure that your outcomes are clear. Make sure that that when you put together your program, that you have clear evidence that these are achievable, that the things that you're talking about are reasonable given your history. So have you seen results like these before? And if these are, if you're kind of going above and beyond, what rationale do you have for going above and beyond? What kind of inputs are you putting into this program that make you think that your results are going to be different this time, as opposed to the previous program? Think about why you are the right organization. So how are you uniquely positioned to provide the program or service that you're proposing? And so your history will tell you a little bit about that. The staffing that you currently have, the philosophy that you have about your approach to this issue. These are all elements of that. And you can just be very blunt about that and say, we are the right organization because of these reasons. We stand out from other organizations because of these reasons. So give a lot of thought to how you have a competitive advantage over other organizations. And every proposal should have with it a sense of urgency that this is the time. Now is the time to make this happen. This is a big issue. Child poverty in our community is at an all-time high. I don't know if it actually is. I'm just saying this is giving you an example. We're faced with major cuts to pandemic relief that are impacting our community, and we've demonstrated that we've had an impact on poverty in Dane County because of ARPA money that's come in from the federal government, and now we've demonstrated that the things that we do as an organization are effective. And so in order to keep those gains, we need more revenue. We need more income into this program. So we have a demonstration period where we were able to decrease the negative impacts of poverty on kids, and we could demonstrate that in a lot of ways. People have more access to food. People are better able to study. So whatever your issue is, you've demonstrated some good results, but now there's something that's changed. So there's something that we need to really address that is going to be a really negative thing if we don't address it. So here's why this is urgent. Why is this the right time for this program to happen? And then are there other things that your program is going to help to happen that are sort of, side effects, other goals that will help to ensure that this will come true? And this is also important that you're not focusing just on your organization. In fact, your entire focus really should be on the people you serve. It's not our organization needs this funding. It's our clients or the people we serve need the funding because of this. This is why it's an urgent need, because we support this population. So your proposal really should be an invitation. Talk to the person you're writing a proposal to as if they are essential to this, because they are. You want to invite them to share in your vision for the future. You want to invite them to better understand all of the elements of this program, and they have an important role. And so there's an element of that we need to give some thought to. When you are writing a proposal, reference the strategic priority that you think you fit into, even if they don't ask you to. If you can demonstrate that you've done your research on their strategic priorities, and you can see that, hey, we fit really strongly here, we can help you to achieve your strategic priority, you're going to give yourself a significant advantage in the application process. A couple more quotes from funders. There should be recognition that others are addressing the same issue and a description of how your project fits into the overall context of the problem. Again, quotes from 1993, right? But these are very relevant. The proposal must be clear about the problem and have clear objectives for addressing it. It shouldn't be grandiose. We need to be assured that the organization has demonstrated its ability to do good, solid work. And then I'm going to talk more about budgeting. So think about, of course, budgeting for staff. So some elements of your budget that relate to staffing, identify who's going to be working on the project. It's pretty likely, at least in my context, that we had people working on different grants, different projects. So we would have a percentage of a person's time working on this project. So we'd want to calculate that out, calculate the rate of pay, calculate then the fringe benefits as well. If you have consultants working on the project, plug their time in as well. So that's kind of the staffing line. Where I think a lot of organizations get hung up is on that percentage. And then also making sure that you're accurate in the fringe benefits and how much you're paying for that for each staff person. So pay close attention to those things. For a lot of organizations, budgeting for staff is usually the biggest chunk of a program proposal, usually right around 80%. Of course, there's a lot of other budget category items. So here's some things to keep in mind. Is there any equipment that's going to be necessary, like computers, copiers, cameras, etc.? Of course, printing material, factor that in. How much paper do you use? How many prints do you make? How much does it cost per print? So do some research on that. Will you need to be doing any travel as a part of this? And can you build that into your budget? Will you need to be going to any conferences, or are you going to be serving any refreshments for your program? So give some thought to those items as well. And as I mentioned earlier, it is extremely rare for you to fund for one funder to fund an entire project. And it actually is a sign of strength, because no funder wants to be the sole funder for what you're doing, because they want to know that other folks are involved. They don't want to carry out the entire load. They don't want you to become reliant on them. So it is actually very much a sign of strength. So here's how you could list your other funders. So let's say your project is a total of $175,000. So we could say, hey, we secured a grant for our 60,000. We think that we're going to get another grant for 40. So we're going to put that in there because we're pretty sure about it. We have $25,000 in unrestricted funding. And so the gap right now is 50,000. So of the $175,000 budget, we're only asking for 50,000 from you to make this program happen. That is a winning proposal from the funder's perspective. If you can demonstrate the effectiveness and you can demonstrate, hey, you don't have to pay the entire amount, you have a portion of it, that's really going to make your proposal much more solid and appealing to the funder. Here's some more about what funders want. They say, hey, don't try and pull the wool over our eyes. Be honest and straightforward. Provide a clear statement of the request, a clear statement of the need, and a clear statement of how the need will be met. Sometimes easier said than done, I know, but make sure that you're going through and you're asking those questions about what a funder is going to see or not see in your proposal. And then finally, engaging with people beyond the page. So there are lots of good ways to do this. Send an invitation, give a call, invite them for a tour of your mission, invite them to see your space, and then also support your team so that they can have a role in providing the message that you want to send to that person. So if you are touring the building with a potential funder, talk to your staff about what you want them to highlight about what you do. Also, you can provide links to short video clips, and I can tell you, people watch that stuff. They really like it. They like to see if you could put together a good 2-minute or less version of your proposal. Then you've got a lot of good things going on, and they'll watch it. Just say, hey, I'm just sending you a 2-minute video featuring one of our students, one of our participants in our program. So put something together that tells the story visually. And then finally, continue to support that message through other communications channels. So you can talk about the proposal that you have in sort of more broad terms through your social media, through your newsletter, through your annual report, and keep it on message. Keep all these things kind of organized and continuing to support the proposals that you put together. So that's all I have for you. But now we're ready for some Q&A.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was a lot. You covered a lot of great information. As a reminder for everybody, if you do have questions that occur to you, please do put them in the Q&A. We are going to go through the questions we have so far, and hopefully we've got a couple more in there. We'll throw a softball at you first, Jeff. Anne would like to know if you have the title of the book that you pulled all those quotes out of.
Yeah, this is kind of an ancient book. It's called The Guide to Proposal Writing, and it's from the Foundation Center. I'm sure that they have a more updated version of it.
Okay, thank you so much. One more kind of functional question. We have had a question about if people will get access to PowerPoint slides after the presentation. I will throw that back to you, Jeff. The bank will obviously send out the copy of the recording. Would you recommend that people email you to get copies if they're interested, or is there another
Sure.
communication
Yeah.
method?
Yeah, I would be happy if you want to just send me an email. And my email is jeff@missionforward.org, and we can put it, I think we've got it somewhere here. Maybe I can put it on the slide.
Yes, we do have it at the end.
Okay.
And so will be included in this
Oh, got it.
presentation, but we can throw it up there again very quickly. Maybe Aaron, we can throw that in the chat quickly. Thank you. You're fantastic, Aaron.
Thank you.
A question for you, Jeff. I'm sorry, not everybody's providing me with a name. Someone is wondering, for presenting clear outcomes, what about outcomes that are not data-driven or not apparently data-driven?
For presenting clear outcomes, what about outcomes that are not so data-driven?
Yeah.
Well, I think that you can. So I was actually just working with a client this morning. We were talking about outcomes, and I think you get good quotes from people about the work that you do. So I'll give you an example. This program has an impact with the way people feel about themselves, and so there were lots of really positive reports about how people were feeling. And if you can actually turn that into a number. So you could say X number of people feel this way or feel better about themselves or about the challenges that they're facing as a result of being a part of our program. And we aim in our outcomes to, when we do our survey, we'll do a survey at the end of the program. We aim for 75% of our participants to have that kind of result. And so that's not exactly a data-driven piece of information that you're using, but you can turn that into data by calculating the survey results.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
I hope it doesn't make sense to me. It's an interesting approach. I'm sure if it did not, we'll get some follow-up questions here. We did have another one. Can you maybe give people an idea of where they might go to get a list of grant funding sources and that ties to whatever their specific missions are or the areas that they are interested in funding?
If you're in the Madison area, the single best way to go about this is to go to UW Memorial Library. where they have a grant center, and the people who staff that are fantastic. They will, I mean, it's probably the most valuable grant research I've ever done in a short period of time, probably in about 3 hours. I was able to get a list of various foundations that support the kind of work that I was doing, the deadlines, the contact people, and even I was able to find a few funding proposals that were funded by those funders. So you have a great resource there. If you don't have access to that, if you're not in the Madison area, there's a lot of other websites that offer that. Your local library might also provide that kind of a service. I know that one of my colleagues lives in Michigan, and her local library has a grant center that's very similar to what we have here at UW-Madison.
Interesting. I would have not have guessed that the Memorial Library would be such a great resource for post-secondary.
Incredible. Yeah.
Okay, we get some more questions coming in here. Do you have any recommendations for approaching an initial funder for a project before you have any other funders lined up?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, if you are thinking about a new program or your new organization, yeah, I think the best way to go about this is to demonstrate some support that you've had, even if it's not financial. So, do you have volunteer support for your program? Um, so, I think the funder is really going to be interested in seeing that you've built some reliable sources of information. So, for instance, let's say you're an all volunteer organization. You've never gotten funding from anybody before, but you put on this great festival, and you have great results. You had some good press from it. You could show that there's some success that you can build on. If you don't have something like that, what is the experience on which you're building this new project? You could demonstrate that. So I think there are lots of ways that you could start to demonstrate that other people have invested something, even if it's not money. Maybe they've invested their time, they've invested their expertise, and so you might have to think a little bit creatively. I'm happy to brainstorm with you about your specific issue, or identify some thoughts that are maybe a little bit more relevant to you. Because this is somewhat of a vague question, I don't know specifically how I can give you the specific answer that you're looking for.
I think that's a good one. We've got a follow-up from Anna. She suggested that the Marquette Library in Milwaukee is also a good source for funding organizations. So thank you very much for chiming in there, Ann. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great.
We have a couple of additional questions that aren't showing up in your box here, Jeff. Lauren is wondering if you have any insight into hot issues that grantors are funding and being able to connect your services to their issues.
Well, I mean, I think certainly the Black Lives Matter movement, the impact of the George Floyd incident has been very clear over the last 3 or 4 years with funders. So that's been a hot issue, and so if you're tied in with that in some way, you should definitely, if you're presenting a program, you should think about ways that you are opening the door for greater equity, greater inclusion for all people into your programs. So yeah, definitely something to think about. I don't know if it's a hot topic exactly, but something that a lot of funders are interested in.
Very good. Stephanie has a great question, I think. She is wondering if operations are something that they can ask a funder for help with. In the context as they're looking at building capacity, but that's not necessarily a bright shiny object or a new program for somebody to look at funding. So how might organizations approach funders for just general operational support?
Yeah, I think that if you can demonstrate the impact that it's going to have on your programs, that is always the best way to go about it. The and again, it's sort of difficult with it without knowing the specific context, but I would say that capacity building is important to funders, is something that they recognize as something that's necessary. I think more and more funders are seeing that this organization, in order for it to grow, needs something else. The Madison Community Foundation, for instance, has funded a lot of development positions for a short period of time, so that they can build the capacity of the organization overall. So it depends on the funder. Some funders have no interest in that at all. So if that's your goal, is to build some sort of infrastructure for your organization, then you definitely need to make sure you do the research necessary to make sure that it fits with that particular funder. So yeah, I think that some funders are open to that, but you have to have a good rationale about how it impacts your programs, how it impacts the people you serve.
Excellent, thank you. Maybe one or two more questions here. Carissa is wondering if you have any advice on capital campaigns that you can give us quickly. It's kind of another big topic.
30 seconds. Yeah, I'll tell you all you need to know. Capital campaigns follow the same logic here. Make sure that you have a very strong plan. And in fact, the planning part of it is way more important with a capital campaign, because you have to demonstrate how it's going to affect all of your other programs. And it's going to take a lot of time to build that. When you sit down and you start working on a campaign, there's just a whole host of other issues you need to address, but the planning part of it is the most important thing for you to get the thing off the ground. So yeah, and again, I'm happy to talk offline about your specific instance.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for taking that tough one. I think we'll end on an easy one, Jeff. Do you have an email distribution list that people could ask to join for ideas or any content that you deliver?
Sure, yeah. I do have an email list, and it's you can sign up on my website, which is missionforward.org.
Fantastic. Well, I would like to thank you, Jeff. Again, this was a great discussion, and I really appreciate you kind of unpacking how to think about grants and appealing for funding for nonprofits. It's something that every nonprofit that I have ever worked with needs to do, and has almost universally said we need to do better. So this is very timely, especially this time of year, but also really clear, straightforward information that I think everybody can take to use out of today's presentation. So thank you so much for your time. If people would like to contact Jeff, again, he's Jeff at missionfwd.org, Jeff at Mission Forward, or his website, missionforward.org. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the afternoon and look forward to seeing you again near the end of October for our next webinar. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of our attendees.